Hey, welcome in. I'm Rita, and this is the story I'm telling myself. If you've ever felt like you're standing in your own way, you are not alone. Let's get into it.
Hello, Rachel Druckenmiller. Welcome to the first episode of season 2 of the Story I'm Telling Myself podcast. So excited to have you.
Thank you. Excited to be here. First podcast of the year, so let's do this.
Let's make it amazing, right? And if you are joining us in the comments, thank you for saying yes to our invitation. Make sure that you recommend this to other friends, but come in the comments and say hello. Please greet Rachel. And while you are doing that, I'm going to let Rachel introduce herself. Go ahead, Rachel.
Hi. Yeah. So I am a catalyst who unleashes what's possible in people. If I had to say what I am and who I am without a title, but I am a keynote speaker, a singer songwriter. I am deeply passionate about making meaning of the world and helping people to come alive and to say yes and to accept the invitations that come their way and to be bold and brave and unmuted. And that is what I'm here to do.
So I just dropped Rachel's website for all of you in the comments here, racheldruckenmiller.com. She's very easy to find. That's going to give you the link to everything you're going to need because you're going to want to follow up with her after you hear her amazing story today. And let's get into it, Rachel. Let's not keep people holding back. So you describe your journey as going from blindsided. Hey, Paula, I'm so glad to have you with us. From blindsided to Billboard. And all of that happened in a very unexpected and freakish way. Please tell our listeners about your interaction with the Chevy Silverado.
I will tell you about that. And also, a friend sent me, apparently, there's a song that starts with the lyrics, White Chevy Silverado by Baileys and Rimmon. I was like, it's too soon.
Man, we should have been playing that had we know that. Hey, Nicole, great to have you with us. Thanks for joining us.
So it's 6 weeks after the pandemic. After the pandemic started, we are washing our groceries and making sourdough bread and meeting our neighbors and going on walks and runs. And I did the thing that we were told to do, get outside and exercise, get some fresh air. So my husband and I go out for a run in our neighborhood and we're in conversation with each other. We're going into a neighborhood where there's all these really amazing houses that we want to check out because we're thinking of moving sometime soon. And as we're approaching the intersection, my husband runs across the street and there was a white Chevy Silverado stopped in the right-hand turn lane. And he runs past the truck. I go to run past the truck. And as I am in the center of the truck, I'm sensing in my periphery that's starting to move. And so I turn my body like I'm, Superman. I'm going to stop this truck from moving. And I slam my hands on the hood of the truck. And this guy does not get the cue. And he keeps turning, takes a right-hand turn into the intersection. I am like up on the grill of this truck, my feet 2 to 3 feet off the ground, going into the center of the intersection. This guy finally realizes, oh my gosh, there's a human on my car. And he slams on the brakes and I slide off and stumble backwards in the middle of the intersection where, by the way, traffic is coming. Like I land in incoming traffic. Thank goodness it was a Sunday afternoon and traffic was light. My husband is standing frozen on the other side of the intersection because he's crossed the street already, completely frozen, watches this entire thing unfold, has no idea what happened. Like, am I okay? I start screaming. I feel like I got the wind knocked out of me. Like, I cannot breathe. It all happened in slow motion. And a bunch of strangers come to my side. He picks me up and walks me over to the sidewalk. EMTs come. Somebody called an ambulance. I don't know who it was. I end up at the hospital. And I'm told I have a compression fracture in my back, which on top of a year that was already not so great, this was not news that anyone needed.
Right.
Right. And because of the time that it was, my husband couldn't even come to the hospital to drop off my purse, to drop off my phone. Security was so tight, like wouldn't even let him drop off my purse. So I'm in this trauma room for 9 hours. And I had this thought that came to mind of there's something here about rising up when we get knocked down that I'm going to use at some point. And because speakers are weird and we have to make meaning out of everything before we've even experienced the fullness of what it is. And I just start singing songs in the middle of the trauma room, laying on this bed by myself. I started singing like Hakuna Matata. And there's a song called Waymaker that we sing at church. And I just start, these lyrics just start pouring out of me, and I just start singing. I needed something.
Really? You were in
Yeah.
a trauma room.
Yeah.
Drapes pulled the whole 9 yards. And of all the things that you choose to do in that moment, how phenomenal that what you choose to do is to sing. That's to
Yeah.
me, and here's the most interesting thing about that, the power of music to heal.
Yeah. And to bring us into a moment, like when you're singing, it regulates, I mean, from a scientific, nerdy standpoint, singing regulates your breathing. It calms down. Singing, humming, and chanting calm down your nervous system. No one sang along, unfortunately. I'm like crying while I'm singing Hakuna Matata. It was a sight. And that experience, going through that, and that was just the beginning, right? Because when you go through something like that, then there's the recovery, the months and the years of physical, emotional, psychological recovery. 2 days after that event, I'm on Zoom delivering a presentation about building hope and resilience in the midst of uncertainty to a group of HR leaders in a back brace. Like, what am I doing? But I needed to sometimes when we go through something really difficult, the fastest way that we can help ourselves begin to heal is to use it for the good of somebody else.
Say that again. Because this is something, look, we all have our own versions of trauma. It may not be getting hit by a Chevy Silverado truck in the intersection on your run, but we all have our traumas. Say that again, Rachel.
Okay, let me remember how I said it. So, so all of us go through these difficult experiences, and you know, the quicker we can get into a place of action and meaning making with it by helping other people, it helps us to heal.
Helping other people helps us to heal. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, when you are stuck, listeners, friends in the comments, and support this if you've had this experience. When you are having the worst possible day in your life, when you show kindness, when you reach out to somebody else, when you give of yourself, it is healing. It is the thing that can turn your day around and make it something that is positive and valuable and meaningful for you.
Yeah, it's true. And so I went, that was like my automatic go-to of like, I need to figure out how to get out of this. Like I can't, it was so traumatizing. I felt so alone, right? Everyone already knows how isolating it was during the pandemic. So imagine the thing that you could do, which was move your body, was taken away from you. So it's like the one freedom that I had, which was to be able to go outside and move my body at a time where everyone was already isolated, was taken away.
Yeah, I have to say, like that was my saving grace. I never had to stop my daily walks. I was able to go to the park, to the woods with my dogs, and that time in nature just really was my sanity. So I feel that deep in my soul, Rachel.
And I think a lot of people here probably do too, of what a gift it was. I remember 3 weeks after the accident, it was a Sunday afternoon, and I'm looking out the bay window with my husband. It's a beautiful Sunday afternoon in May, and I see this guy, I don't even know him, run by our house. And I just turned to my husband and I hugged him and I cried because I was like, I don't know when I'm going to be able to do that again. And so that experience, I know we'll get to it, but like that was the beginning of, that was the blindside moment that I didn't see coming. And everyone has didn't see it coming moments, blindside moments, like a diagnosis or a divorce or a death of somebody or a loss of some kind, a layoff. Everybody knows what it feels like to be blindsided, hopefully not by a truck, but everyone gets it. And so when we share our struggles and we say, hey, I didn't see it coming, someone says, oh my gosh, me too. I completely get what that's like. We create connection and we help ourselves and each other get through those more difficult moments together because we know we're not alone.
Well, that instinct that you had in the trauma room to sing, you carried that forward. It emerged again for you. So tell us a little bit more, because what you say about yourself is you said, "Oh, I'm not a singer. I'm somebody who likes to sing."
Mhm.
And you treated singing as if it were this little fun side thing
Yeah.
that you did, and you really did not give yourself permission. You muted your passion
Mhm.
for singing. And yet it was the thing that automatically came out of you in this moment of trauma. Tell
Mhm.
us a little bit more about how that story with music evolved.
Yeah, well, I think sometimes when we see somebody having a talent, we assume they've always had that. They've always been good at that. They've always been comfortable doing that. That's always been their thing. And for me, people that meet me now are like, "Oh my gosh, you've always been a singer, right?" I've always liked to sing, but I wouldn't own the identity of being a singer. I mean, from the time I was 6, 7, 8 years old, I would sing in this room in my house. I'd shut all the doors, put on giant headphones, rock out to Amy Grant, Celine Dion, Mariah Carey, like these major ballad singers. And I loved it, but I would never have an audience because having an audience made me feel really anxious and scared and potentially judged, and I couldn't risk that. So
Mm.
I did an audition for choir in high school. It wasn't until my junior year of college that I finally auditioned for a solo in the gospel choir. Only after a semester abroad awakened something in me. And then my husband and I connected through music. We would sing at church. This was the extent of it. But I loved singing from the time I was little. Like Sister Act, the redheaded nun in Sister Act. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Who came with this little voice like this? And then, Whoopi Goldberg like pushes her stomach and makes her like have this release of all this sound. I connected to that woman on so many levels my whole life. I was like, that's me. Because there's more in there, but I'm afraid to let it out. And I think
So
sometimes
you
we feel
had
that
this
way.
big dream.
Yeah.
We said the name of this episode is "What Dreams Are You Muting?"
Yeah.
And this dream of having the identity of a singer
Mm-hmm.
was something in your life that you were muting. So if you're with
Yes.
us and you're in the comments, have a little vulnerable moment. So show some support to Rachel. How many of you have a dream like this that you've been muting at some level? And share. Tell us in the comments what is your dream that maybe you've been muting. So you've been muting that,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
you took some steps. You gave yourself permission to just take a few little steps, right? Like you
I did.
hired a voice coach, started taking singing lessons, right?
Virtually. I mean, because I needed an outlet. When I was confined in a back brace, I was stuck. My body felt really stuck and trapped. And I was like, what always made me feel free and alive from the time I was little? Singing. So I hired a virtual voice coach, 3:00 every Monday. We got together for no performative purpose. I was not taking voice lessons to perform, to train for a show. I was just doing it to give myself something fun to do for an hour on a Monday. Like that was it. And sometimes I think we don't pursue something because we think we have to make it a thing. We have to make it this
Mm.
big thing in order to, if I'm going to do this, I have to really make it a thing. And for me, the thing was just doing it. It was just singing, letting myself have that dedicated space to do this thing that made me feel alive.
So I want to slow down a little bit right here
Yeah.
because this is the story I'm telling myself. And
Mhm.
Rachel just gave you some really important permission and guidance about a story you might be telling yourself,
Mm.
which is you might be telling yourself, if I take any movement forward, it has to become a big thing in my life. And she just gave you permission to say no. No, that's just a lie that your perfectionist inside of you is telling you. You don't have to make everything into a big thing. You're
Yeah.
allowed to have little things for yourself, and that's enough too.
It so is. Like if you enjoy it, do it. I mean, we overcomplicate things, as adults. Kids pursue the things that they like to do. They don't
Yes,
think
they
about
do.
they're not like, what's my end game here? Like, am I going to make money off of this? Kids they do it because they enjoy it. And as adults, we kind of forget that we can also still do that. And I pay this woman, right? I mean, so you might even look at something like that and be like, you were paying somebody money for something that had no end game, no big goal. The goal is to feel alive and joyful. I think that's like a pretty good goal. You know?
Yes. It definitely in the pandemic, it was a very important
Yeah.
goal. And
It,
so, in many ways, again, the story that you could have told yourself was well, I'm just stuck. You could have, it could have been this really uninspiring downward thing. And instead, you told yourself a story of, I can still create some space of joy for myself.
Yes.
You looked at where that was. And again, you gave yourself permission. You said, I can create an hour of joy in my life every week, just doing this thing that has always brought me joy.
Yeah.
And how many of us who are stuck in a bad job, that are stuck in a toxic work environment, that are stuck in toxic relationships, maybe the place to start, maybe the story to shift to that you need to tell yourself is you can just give yourself 1 hour of joy in something that really brings that to your life.
Yeah.
Just make that the starting point, because that was the starting point, but let's move the story along.
Yeah.
What happened next?
So I do this for 2 years. I start doing a LinkedIn live show and on Christmas, I'm like, I'm going to sing Christmas songs to people. Oh my gosh.
I was there for this. I remember this was when I first met Rachel. This is when I discovered Rachel. It was during the pandemic, and she started coming to LinkedIn in song, because I'm a song girl too.
Yeah.
And so I just loved it.
Well, I was so nervous when I first did it. I'm like, I practiced for 3 months. I'm like, I have to get it right. If I don't sing Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, if I miss a note, people are going to judge me. Like, I was so in my head, and we do that. We get so in our head. We tell ourselves a story that people are thinking about us way more than they actually are.
Say that again.
We tell ourselves a story. We tell ourselves a story that people are thinking about us way more than they actually are, that they are judging us, that they're like, oh my gosh, this person's the worst. No, they're not, because they're so busy being self-conscious about themselves. They're not thinking about you.
Yes. Please, friends. Like, let's see. This is how many minutes in are we? Where's my timer? I can't see it.
17 minutes.
Like 17 minutes. We need to mark this. Put this on repeat. Have Rachel create yourself a little clip that you play on at least once a week to remind you people are really not that into you. You are going to be okay.
Yeah, like no offense. No offense, you're not that important. And that's part of what it is this self-inflated sense of importance that drives our insecurity and this belief that everyone's judging us. And it's so unhelpful. And like, so what if they are? If someone's judging you, that's on them. That's not on you. I've had people judge me for singing. So I'm doing this voice lesson thing. I'm singing snippets of things in the keynotes I'm delivering virtually. So I'll sing a little bit of Hakuna Matata, or like, I'm a survivor, or whatever. I'll weave these moments into the talks I'm giving. People are responding. I'm having fun with it. And then a LinkedIn coach I worked with in the summer of 2022 said to me, Rachel, you should record music videos and put them on LinkedIn. I was like, music videos of what? What? I don't even know how to do that. And she goes, oh, just, other covers of other people's songs. I was like, I don't know how to make a music. This sounds like a bigger thing than you're making it. 1 a month. I don't think you understand what this entails. So I reached out to a guy I go to church with, named Leroy. And it is hard to, I know someone's commenting here. It is hard to realize that people don't care about us. Not to be rude about it, but people aren't thinking about you as much as you think they are. Yes.
Their own perfectionists is in their own head, driving them crazy.
We are. It's a lot of noise. Not helpful. So this coach says you should record music videos. I don't know how to do that. I reach out to a guy named Leroy, who I go to church with. He just started a music production company. So this guy's in an a cappella group, graduated with a degree in music composition from college. And I said, hey, Leroy, can we record some covers? I had no plan. I didn't have any covers in mind. I show up at his makeshift basement studio on a Friday afternoon in September. And I sit down and I look at him and he says, so what do you want to write your first song about? I was like, we are here for different reasons.
Can I say I'm a fan of Leroy? I am a fan. Everybody needs a Leroy in their life.
They do. Well, and the second he asked that, the story I was telling myself was, you don't have any background in songwriting. You don't know how to read music. You don't play any instruments. You're not a composer. You're not a singer. You're not a songwriter. Like, all of those voices were very active in that moment when he made this completely wild suggestion that I write a song. And he said, so I pushed back and he goes, okay, well, like, if you were to write a song, what would it be about? So I said, okay, hypothetically, this is very hypothetical because I can't do this. I don't know how to do this.
right? Those are the
Really
stories.
loud story.
Loud.
I don't know how. And I said,
And I might fail and embarrass myself, right? And
oh,
deep underneath all of that. And if I do this, this could just be the biggest fail I have, most public, ugly, worst thing ever. Why would I ever go after that? Right? That is at the core of the lie.
Yeah.
That our internal narrator is spinning up.
Yeah. Why would I try and fail? Why bother trying? Which for my whole life was what I felt and thought. And so I said, okay, well, if I were to write a song, I watched this documentary last night called Bully on Netflix. I don't know if anyone's watched it. It's older, made in 2012. It's these 6 vignettes of these kids who were bullied growing up, harassed, bullied. And it's really, really sad what happened. 3 of these kids took their own lives. Elementary, middle school age kids. I mean, devastating. And one of the kids was named Ty Smalley. I think he might have been about 11. And his dad, Kirk, this is in the documentary, his dad, Kirk, his parents started a nonprofit called Stand for the Silent. And they would go out and deliver anti-bullying messages at schools. And they would have these memorial, services where they would acknowledge the lives of those that had been lost. And at these events, they gave everybody a silicone bracelet that said the words, "I am somebody," on the bracelet. So I'm remembering this, watching this documentary from less than 24 hours before that moment. And I said to Leroy, if I were to write a song, I'd want to write a song about being somebody, because everybody wants to feel like there's somebody and a lot of people feel like they aren't. So we start digging into it. And he starts asking me questions. And I said, well, I felt like growing up, in order to be somebody, the story I told myself growing up, in order to be somebody, I had to be impressive. In order to be somebody, I had to be accomplished. In order to be somebody, I had to be performing and proving myself in some way. I had to be excellent. I had to be the best. And if I wasn't those things,
hands up in the comments if these are stories you grew up and maybe are still telling yourselves, right? I got to be impressive. I've got to earn that external validation. I got to show up in a way that earns it every day.
The belief that I carried was, if I am not impressive, then I am a nobody. That's it. And so I felt that deep down, and it drove so much of the behavior that I've had my whole life of being accomplished and being impressive and going after awards and getting straight A's and gold stars, and all of that was driven by this deep, deep, deep-seated fear that if I didn't do all of that, that I was nobody. And who the deeper layer beneath that was, and who would love a nobody? Like,
right.
Who would accept a nobody? Who would want to be around? Who would want to be friends with a nobody? The story I told myself, very, very deep-seated, that drove a lot of my behavior. So we start working on this song, and I don't know what I'm doing. I'm at the story, in the moment, I'm like, I don't know how to write a song. I don't know what, and he starts playing this beautiful melody line that was just, I can't even, this is the melody line. He starts playing this, and I'm like, did you just make that up? What? It was so beautiful. And he says, hum along with it, find the melody. I'm like, I don't know what that means. So I start humming over it, and I'm so in the moment, I'm like, am I doing this right? Am I messing this up? Is this going to work? At the same time, I'm still showing up, and we have that choice, right? We can be asking ourselves those questions. The doubt and fear can show up, and we can still say, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. And by the end of that session, we had a verse. And when I got home, I could not stop thinking about the song. I did no other work the rest of the day. I had work to do. I got home and I became obsessed. And I sent him a voice note, and I said, I think I have the chorus. I think the chorus at the end of the song is you are somebody, you are somebody, you matter and you are enough. Like, I think I have the chorus. I think I have it. And so we're pinging notes back and forth to each other. And I'm like, I feel so alive. Like, so after literally having a brush with death, I know what that felt like 2.5 years earlier, to now feeling so alive, still having no idea what I'm doing, but showing up anyway. And we get together every other week for the next 5 months. And on January 26th.
Well, and let me just pause you there.
Yeah.
Because one of the most universal stories that we all tell ourselves is we have to know how before we can.
Yes. Yeah.
And so you heard it here. You heard it here, friends. Rachel is living proof. You don't have to know how before you can. You can just be present,
Yes.
stay in the moment, and release. Eliminate that perfectionist voice, that high achiever voice. Let go of all of that noise in your head and just stay present and give yourself over to the opportunity.
Yeah, they say like jump and the net will appear. I mean,
Yes.
that was one of those moments of jump and the net will appear. And it was a reminder to me of the power of collaboration and the power of a borrowed belief. So I talk a lot about, borrowing other people's belief in us. And in that moment when Leroy asked the question that I never anticipated of what do you want to write your first song about, he was demonstrating borrowed belief. And he's basically saying, I think you can do this, even though he had no proof that I could. He had no evidence that I could do this. And I had no evidence that I could do this. But we both moved forward. And he had a certain level of expertise that made me feel more comfortable taking some of the risk because I knew that he wasn't going to judge me. Like deep down, I knew he wasn't going to be like, you're the worst. Like a secret part of me maybe was a little afraid of that. But he's somebody who creates a safe space. And so we go through this for 5 months. Didn't have all the answers, had no answers, made it up as I went.
Can we pause just a minute before
Yes.
you go there? I just want to go back to what you just said about borrowing belief.
Yeah.
Because, my practice in organizational psychology is in business. And when you look at the magic of what happens in startup businesses, it is that magic of borrowed belief. People do all kinds of jobs they've never done before that they don't know how to do. They're figuring things out on the fly, but they have an end goal and they borrow belief from one another and they lean in and they get past the voice that says you don't know how. They stop telling themselves they have to find people that know how. And they say, we are the people. We will figure it out. We will figure out the how. This is such a powerful thing, and I think it's why your message is so resonant, and why so many fans exist in the world who've seen you speak. It is powerful. So wherever you are in your business life, in the life of your team, I really hope you'll take away and think about on a business level this idea of borrowed belief and getting past the idea that we have to wait for somebody with the knowing to show up.
Yes. Yes, confidence is the byproduct of action. You get more confident the more you do the thing. And confidence compounds over time. So the more you have a little win, you get a small piece of evidence of like, I don't know, I could write a verse. We just read a verse. Okay. Maybe I could write another verse. Maybe I could write a bridge. Maybe I could write a chorus. And I don't have to do it alone. That was the other part of it.
And you can expect that it's not always going to be right. The first thing that you do may not work out. So the other thing is the iterative nature of all of this, right? When you borrow belief, you also create a space of grace where you say, I'm going to try, which means sometimes it's not going to work out. And that doesn't mean I failed. It just means that didn't work out. And I'm going to try again in a different way.
Yes.
And we really have to remap our stories about that, because this idea that it's one and done or we get it right every time is so ingrained in how we practice in most businesses.
Oh, and in life. I mean, think about it. We've all heard this, story before of, could you imagine if the first time a baby went up to take a step and they fell, we're like, well, you're never going to walk.
Right.
But we do that to ourselves. Like
Yes,
you try
we
to
do.
think one time that you've never done before and you're like, oh, I didn't mess up. I didn't do it right. You've never done it before. Why would you expect yourself to be awesome at it? Give yourself some patience and say, ooh, this is a fun little journey. Like, what if you look at it as a first step of an adventure instead of an opportunity to fall flat on your face? I mean,
Yes. So I'm looking at the time.
Yeah.
I know we've got limited time. So I want to move us along in the story here a minute, because we want to get to the Billboard part of this, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I love the videos that you posted. But I think the first step before even the Billboard, if I am correct, is this redemption moment. you talked about how when you were in high school, in your story, how you wouldn't even give yourself permission to try out. You wanted to sing. You said you spent this time in your house singing all the time. But when it came to doing it publicly, you were so afraid
Yeah.
that
Oh,
you wouldn't even give yourself an attempt.
yeah.
You were definitely muting this opportunity to
Mhm.
step into this identity. But you had a redemptive moment,
I did.
and then which also then led. So you start writing. You write your first song.
Yeah.
You did some beautiful videos and releases with that. Move us into the
Yeah.
story and tell us about your redemptive moment at your high school.
Yeah, so my high school, we had been talking about having me speak at an event, and they had this event called the theme was around voices, and I was like, I have an idea. So I was just going to go speak initially to the girls. So I went to an all girls Catholic high school. There were going to be 700 or so students, faculty at this event, and then I said, my first song just came out. I mean, I'd never performed this. I was not a performer. So I'm telling myself, first of all, I'm not a singer. Then I became a singer. Now I'm like, okay, I can't deny that identity. I have a song on Spotify. I can't say I'm not a singer. And then, but I'm like not a performer, right? So the story is I'm a singer, but I'm not a performer. So it's like we incrementally get to this place. And I said, but I could sing it. I have a backing track. I was so nervous. And I tell the story. I go back to my high school. I tell the story to all these girls about being a trailblazer. And I get to the end of it, and I talked about this, how I let fear hold me back when I was sitting in the seats that they were sitting in. I was afraid to do this thing that I loved. And maybe they're afraid to do a thing that they love because they're self-conscious and afraid what people think. And I start to tee it up, and I said I wouldn't even try out for the choir here. And I took voice lessons for 1 year as a senior and had to do a performance and a recital. And I blacked out when I did it because no part of it was joyful. And I wished I could just hide under the covers. And I start to tee this up, and I hear this whisper in the girls in the crowd. They go, is she going to sing? Is she going to sing? And I tell the story of the song. I tell the story of releasing it on Spotify. And I said, and now I'm going to do the thing that I was too afraid to do when I was sitting where you're sitting. And I went up on stage, the stage that I never sang on all 4 years of high school. And the backing track to my first original song comes through the speakers. And I sing Somebody to this entire room of people 20 years after I would have wanted to do something like that for the very first time. And it was this full circle moment of, oh my gosh, like I did it. I did a thing. And I was scared. I was nervous. And I can go back and watch that video and be like, my voice is shaking and I didn't sing it the best way. But like sometimes the fact that you did the thing, regardless of how well you did it, is what matters most. Like just doing I did the brave thing.
Practice is prologue, right? I mean, this was your first public practice in many ways, right? And as a speaker, you really understand that because it's somebody who gives motivational keynotes. There's a lot of practice in smaller rooms before you take bigger stages, etc., right? But isn't it interesting how we still are inner perfectionists, that polyperfectionist, man, she just does not want to shut the F up. She just wants to like nitpick everything apart all the time. And this is how we continue to have these muting stories inside of us.
Yeah.
So you had your first public performance, and then what happened?
Well, then around that same time, the song's releasing, I get this lyric. You know, I said when I was laying in the trauma room in the hospital bed, I had this thought of, I'm going to use this for something good. So as soon as the settlement closes, there's a lawsuit with the accident. I'm cleaning my kitchen 2 months after somebody releases, around the same time I sing at my high school. And all of a sudden this lyric comes to my mind of like, I didn't see it coming. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a song. So then I write a song about the accident. Didn't see it coming. My second song that releases in September of that year. And then around this similar time before Somebody came out, I had watched this story unfold of someone that a lot of people are familiar with, but they may not know they're familiar with him. His name is Twitch. He was a dancer he was a DJ on the Ellen Show. And he was a DJ on the Ellen Show, was on the show So You Think You Can Dance. He was just this ball of light and energy and joy. And every time you saw him, you're like, that guy is having a good time. And I saw the news pop up on people.com in December of 2022 that he had also died by suicide. So like 2 songs that I wrote inspired by this. I start writing a poem. I haven't written a poem in 20 years. After seeing an Instagram post of a mentor of mine that said, check on the light bulbs with a picture of Twitch. And I spent the next 2 hours like writing this poem about checking on the light bulbs. You know who they are, the ones that burn brightest, the ones that ignite us. They live like a spark. And I write this poem, and 3 months later, I'm on the Peloton. And all of a sudden, I'm like, wait a second. Check on the light bulbs. You know who they are. This is a song. So then I realized the poem is a song. And I write the song Light Bulbs. We have a full band we perform this with, drums and keys and organ and electric guitar and bass guitar. And I mean, it was incredible, the studio recording. And then that voice from 2 years earlier, you should make a music video, comes to mind again. And I reach out to these 2 guys through Leroy. And I'm like, hey, I want to make a music video. How does this work? So I show up at a warehouse with like 4 outfits. And I'm like, what do I wear? Tell me what to do. I don't know how to do a music video. And so we record this thing 5 hours. I get my hair and makeup done. We record this thing. Leroy's playing piano in the background. And a month after that, I released my first music video for this song, Light Bulbs. I don't know how to make story. I'm telling myself. I don't know how to make a music video, but I know people that do. And that's why you mentioned before, there's a book by Benjamin Hardy on Dan Sullivan called Who Not How. You don't necessarily have to know the how. You just need to know the right who's. So I found the right who's. Leroy and these 2 other guys, and they shot this thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, I made a music video. Fast forward 9 months, a friend of mine, Matt Immersion, who does amazing work focusing on helping people be reminded that they matter. So we have a lot of alignment there with wanting people to know that they're somebody who matters. And he has a partnership with the Billboards in Times Square. And he's offering it to us, a group of speakers, and saying, if you guys want to put a picture of yourself, up there on the billboard. I'm like, no offense. No one's walking through Times Square and being like, oh, a keynote speaker. Cool. So
said nobody ever.
Said nobody ever. So I reached out. I said, hey, dude, could I do you said it's going to be up for 15 seconds? He goes, yeah. 24 hours, every hour on the hour, 15 seconds, you get your spot. You got to pay money for it. It goes to a charity. And I said, could I do a video instead of a picture? And he goes, I mean, nobody's ever asked, but I guess so. So I said, great, I'll get back to you. And within 3 days, I contacted the team that did my music video. I said, I need you to do a 15-second version of that. And I need you to send it to me yesterday. So I submit this. And then we spend an obscene amount of money, my husband and I, to take the train, because all this happens at the last minute with no notice, to take a train up to New York City, 6 hours round trip in one day. We're in Times Square for maybe 2 hours total. And I get to stand there with a group of a few of my friends and my husband as I see my first music video show up on a billboard in Times Square. The little girl who wouldn't sing in front of a single person, who wouldn't even audition for the choir at her high school, has a music video in Times Square. And all of this happened because the worst day of my life, that accident, made me realize I didn't want to die with my music still locked up inside of me. And that I had something to share. And that I needed to stop muting it. And I might not get a second chance. But I was given one. I was given another opportunity. And I wasn't going to waste it. And I wasn't going to be the kind of person that went down with boldness regrets that so many of us have. If only, why didn't I? I wish I had. So many of us carry the pain of boldness regrets. And I didn't want to be that person anymore. And I decided to step into the identity of what it is to be a singer. And I told myself a new story. Maybe I can do this. What if I tried? Let's see what happens. And now it has become one of the greatest sources of joy of my whole life. And I didn't even know I could do it. But here we are.
And there you have it, friends. This whole episode, you've gotten to this key message you need to walk away with. No boldness regrets. What is the story that you are telling yourself that is muting that dream deep inside of you that will be your boldness regret? 2026 is your year to say, no, thank you. I'm going to step into the light. I'm going to unmute this dream and allow it to shine. And I'm not going to do it perfectly. And hey, that's okay, because this isn't about perfect. Each step unlocks the next thing. Like you didn't walk out and say, I'm going to have a billboard in Times Square, right?
No.
You just said, I'm going to have an hour of joy in my life, right?
Yeah.
It's a road. It's a journey. It's a journey, not a destination. This is not about setting a goal. This is about recognizing your deepest, truest dreams that you've had in lockdown and taking one small step to allow the joy of that dream into your life.
Yeah. Moving toward aliveness. Get in alignment with aliveness. What makes you feel alive? Go do more of that thing. You have one shot here. You have one life. You have one life. Don't waste it.
Friends, if you have the power or know somebody with the power to book speakers, you're not going to be surprised when I say send them to racheldruckenmiller.com. This is why Rachel needs to be at events that people are attending, for conferences, for business, for any organization. Rachel, you are incredible. Thank you for the generous time that you've given to launch season 2 of The Story I'm Telling Myself. This is an incredible episode. I am so excited to share it. It'll be on all podcast streaming on Thursday. And then we'll be back here next week on Tuesday with Holly McNeil. And she's going to share some vulnerable stuff that most of us would never talk about to anybody that wasn't our intimate friends. She's bringing a new level of vulnerability you don't want to miss. Come back and join us again next week, same time, same place. And Rachel, thank you so much for being with us. racheldruckenmiller.com. Everybody have a wonderful Tuesday. We'll see you again soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us. If you love this episode, leave us those 5 stars and be sure to share this with a friend. And if you didn't, don't worry about it. See you back here next week.